Welcome everyone, this is Michi Hoyer and I welcome you to a very special video, very special stream of today. And very sorry for the technical difficulties here right in the beginning because I have moved back to my office PC, which is no potato PC, but seemingly the streaming software got a little bit too hard. But anyway, we are ready now to introduce you the Formula SimRacing. No wait, the Race Indy Championship by FSR, and I'm very happy to introduce to you Cameron Rodger, the FSR president and race director for the upcoming series. We're gonna have a little bit of an introduction about the upcoming series, as well as a question and answer stream towards the end of the stream. So if you do have any questions during that introduction, make sure you note them down and put them out in the end of our presentation, which we're going to start shortly. But first of all, thank you very much, Cameron Rodger, for joining us for tonight's presentation.
Yes, hello everyone. And yeah, we're going to talk to you a little bit about this Indy Pro Championship. Obviously, we've got that coming up tomorrow, so do check that out at 16:40 GMT on the FSR channel will be the IAM category, and then at 18:40 GMT on the Race YouTube channel, we'll be going for Indy Pro. So yeah, we're just going to talk to you a little bit about it today, and then hopefully we'll answer all your questions because it's a little bit different to how the normal season works.
So first of all, before talking about the actual season itself, we want to have a look into the competitors, at least for round one for tomorrow. But those are the cars and the teams that have announced themselves taking part in this series. Cameron, you want to say something towards this grid, as it is quite different compared to the Formula SimRacing main season we just had this summer.
Yeah, I'm really happy, to be honest, with the grid that we've got. We've obviously got some newer teams. Got Wanako coming in. We've got Williams Esport as well. Got Jean Lacey coming back after them being in WC a couple of years ago as well. Varga have joined. Brem GP have returned as well, and also Pescara with two teams. So it's a really stacked field. Really happy with the teams that we managed to get. So it's a full grid. So it's 15 teams, 30 cars on the grid, and yeah, it's just looking pretty awesome, to be honest. Obviously, we've got yourself and Yerne in that Burst Complexity team as well, which is probably going to be one of the contenders. And obviously, Stefanko and Burlak in Williams is going to be really good. But obviously, there's some other teams there that you really need to look out for as well. And with the series being a fixed setup, any one of these teams can win if their drivers get the performance out of the car.
Yeah, that's very true. Also, as a driver perspective, this looks like a high competition grid, and I'm pretty much looking forward to having close and tight battles. And it's great to see names like Williams Esports and Shaw Lazy entering the Formula SimRacing series. So that's going to be interesting for sure in the future. But before we come talking about the key facts about this series, do the first things first, the organizational thing. We do now see the calendar of the IndyCar PROIAM series, and we just had the pre-season test on the 13th of September. People have seen an exclusive onboard from this end here. We do have 4 rounds, all of them being road courses, and then round 5 and 6 being oval courses, with the 6th round being the Indianapolis 300, not 500 but 300. So as an FSR president, what is your expectations from this series, and what did you think about when doing the calendar?
So the initial idea was almost potentially to run a one-off event for an Indy 500, but then there's a number of reasons why that isn't really the best idea, because in an oval race you could easily just have one crash and then you're straight out of the race, you're straight out of potentially the prizes for that event as well. So then we decided maybe bring back the IndyCar series, because obviously we did it back in 2018 as well. So then it just sort of worked its way along that, and obviously with using the official content, we wanted to add in Portland because that just got released. Then Sebring and Virginia, they are DLC tracks, but they're two of the best actual track, or the best quality tracks, I should say, in R Factor 2 as well. And then I like the idea of starting and finishing with Indy using the road course and the oval as well. So then we just had really left over one speedway. So me and actually Dennis Jordan, we went around every single oval that is on R Factor 2, and Apple Valley was the best option for that. So yeah, that's how we sort of came about to the calendar. And as you see on the right hand side, you got the lap counts. So we do have two races. We have a sprint race and a feature race format as well for the road courses. So I think we've really sort of spiced up to add some variables to the series, and I think it looks like a really good calendar. Then obviously we got the test races in there as well, because for the speedway races we will be having drivers do a speedway license where they have to basically prove themselves. So we have a couple of test races there where people will be able to join and earn themselves their license. So yeah, really excited about the calendar, and obviously the next couple of months is going to be quite intense because it is literally every single week. But I think that's also going to be quite interesting to follow that, as obviously teams don't have too long to prepare for each race.
I think it's a nice addition that everything is so tight and packed because, not gonna lie, as much as Corona has been a thing, the fact that we have just in 11 weeks we saw 9 Formula One races, and this is one of the first weekends where there is no Formula One is like it's so nice. So yeah, each and every weekend there's something going on, which I do appreciate a fair lot. Also, looking forward to this 2-race format as an event will be definitely interesting in terms of strategy and for the championship in the end, which we're going to look into it a little bit later because there are some specific rules to that. Anyway, before going into that area, we just look at the schedules fairly quick. We do have the very same schedule for all the people around for every round. The only reason why this is split up on rules-wise is due to the daylight hour saving. Round 1 to 4 and round 5 effectively take place at the very same time of the day, but due to the daylight hour saving, we had to do a little addition in the rules to that, so hence why this is split up a little bit. Anyway, Cameron Rodger already told this. Tomorrow is the first race already, and we're going to be live with the series starting 16:13 GMT with a practice qualifying and so on for the AM guys, is it?
Yeah, so they will be going out first. So it's this sort of is similar to the Pro and the WC schedule, but we've moved the AM back just a little bit because obviously some weeks there are still the Formula One races, so we wanted to make sure we're just out of clashing with them. So yeah, they will have their race at I should see there 1700 GMT, and then about an hour late or 2 hours later we then go into the Pro category as well. So fairly sort of simple calendar, but it'll be pretty much back to back. As soon as the AM race finishes, the practice opens, then we have a bit of a break, and then we go straight into the Pro category. So it's going to be pretty good to just go through them all in one. But obviously, the AM category, as I said, will be on the FSR channel, where the Pro category will be on the races channel.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the race and the broadcasts after our presentation, because it's an interesting fact for Formula SimRacing. Now, you may have seen that there was one event missing, which was the Indy 300 schedule. That is a little bit different compared to race 1 to 5. Cameron, what is the idea behind the schedule on the Indy 300?
So with the Indy 300 sort of taking a bit more time, and obviously it being the main event of the series, they wanted it to be as good as possible. So the AM category will only have their championship between round 1 and 5. So the champion will be crowned in Apple Valley at the end of that race. The AM race for the 300 is purely a pre-qualifier. So as you see there in the middle, the top 3 drivers plus any more that we need to fill up the grid to 33 cars will get through. But that AM category race is sort of open to anyone. So anyone who wants to just sign up for the 300, any of the Indy Pro reserve drivers. So some of the teams have reserve drivers. Maybe they want to get another one of their teammates in there to help them, something like that. So anyone can do the AM category Indy 300. And the exact details of like how long the race is and how we're going to do it isn't 100%. So that schedule might change just a little bit for the AM guys. But yeah, it'll be a small race for the Indy 100 or whatever for the AM category, and then obviously later in the evening we then move to the Indy 300, which is the main event, and yeah, I can't wait for that one. That's going to be pretty intense.
I agree. We're all looking forward. So let's talk a little bit about the IndyCar PRO-AM fact, because this series is a little bit different compared to the others. First of all, we start with the official car, which is the Dallara DW12, the default Studio 397 IndyCar with its IndyCar physics. So nothing has changed on there. I think you only made slight additions to fuel tank. Was there something else you adapted?
So from the base road package and the base oval package, all we've done is we've adjusted the fuel. So we have a 40-litre tank. So it's quite a bit smaller actually than the default one, but the default one is way too big, and there's like no strategic option for these slightly shorter races. So yeah, we've lowered the fuel tank quite a bit, and also the dirty air and the slipstream has been adjusted just a little bit as well, actually a decent amount, to make it a lot more raceable. And as you see there on the screen, it's fixed setup. So every single driver has the same setup, and that is courtesy of Alan Terzic, who has been working hard behind the scenes to make a setup for everyone, because this car is unbelievably difficult to set up. So some people may complain about either the fact that there is a fixed setup or complain about the fixed setup itself and the settings that it has. But this car is unbelievably difficult to set up. So we wanted, especially with it being so intense, we wanted to put more of a fair playing field to all drivers. So hopefully this works out pretty well. And I'm loving the car. I think Alan's done a really good job. So yeah, we'll see how that one goes.
Yeah,
and beyond. We've got.
Yeah. Go on. Go ahead.
Like I say, we got the two tie compounds. So that is sort of one of the most interesting facts about this car is how those two tires work, because the alternates, they are pretty good tires actually. Not only do they have a lot more grip, but they do last quite a long time. So the Prime are actually sort of the worst tire because they simply have less grip. So because of that, you'll see in a sec, we have done some rules around that. But it is quite interesting how those two tires work in this car. And as you see, we've got the 40-litre reduced tank as well. And because of that, we've slowed down the fuel time. So it still takes about 12 seconds or so to do a full tank, despite it being a much smaller tank.
So despite not much flexibility on the car setup itself, you gave us the option to use different tires and with a fuel tank capped to 40 liters, which means you have to do a pit stop at the very least, maybe even 2 pit stops for the feature race, presumably more 2 than 1. But yeah, you've given us some strategic options, which will be interesting to see how this goes through the race. However, there are 2 more facts on this IndyCar series that make it pretty unique, I'd say. First of all, we're gonna have live stewarding, and second, we're gonna have a safety car that will be manually driven for cautions on the oval roads. So before we get talking about this point, we just show you a little clip in the background showing you the car, how it is set up and how the gears are set up for the road course and for the oval. But Cameron, let us speak about the fact of live stewarding and the safety car. Both things are pretty unique around the sim racing world on R-Factor 2 in general. Like we have seen some live stewarding in the race series. Then the race series is a different organizer, so in all fairness, FSR is very glorious and has a lot of prestige, but at the end of the day, it's more or less a kind of small league, or a smaller league compared to a big organization like Ideas and Cars. So live stewarding, what kind of administrational work and effort comes with it behind that compared to what we had in the FSR main series, which has been stewarding after the races?
Yes, it adds quite a big difference to the race. So we will be watching over the drivers as they drive around. So there'll be myself, Jacob Reed, and Thomas Lenz. So us three behind the scenes. We'll be, Thomas will mainly be doing the servers. I'll be driving the safety car, and then Jacob will be there to look at the stewarding and making out all the calls over TeamSpeak as well. So this is the first time that we're doing that. We've got a really good team there of us three to watch over. Obviously, it is, a debatable subject about giving penalties during the race, which is, to be honest, why the main series has had post-race penalties pretty much all the time, because it's a lot easier to go back and look through. So some of the bigger incidents we will look at after the race, but if there are smaller issues where we can easily tell someone to give up a place, or maybe give them, a time penalty that'll be applied after the race, or even if it's really bad, give them like a drive-through or stop-go, then we will be looking into that, because we want to have sort of the best visual display of a race and trying to make it not necessarily realistic, but just making it sort of work how a real race would work.
Yeah.
Because that is pretty much how most series work, where in real life, where they give you penalties during the race, rather than, because right now, if you watch an FSR stream, we'll be like, oh yeah, the stewards will look at that after the race, and then you kind of never find out what happens. So it's quite good to get it, straight away. But yeah, some of the more tricky stuff we probably won't do, because we want to make sure they're correct. But the obvious stuff, we will be doing, and we've got three of us to look over that. So I think we're going to be pretty sorted.
Yeah, that sounds very nice. And since we see the car going over the oval, we have the safety car manually driven by you in place for incidents on the road course. So what has you made doing that decision, bringing in the safety car to the series, which is manually driven and quite unique around the sim racing world as well? And why would you preferably only use it on the oval compared to the road course?
Yeah, so the manually driven safety car was decided because the in-game one is good, but it has some weird tweaks and some weird things about it that are just too awkward, and it can randomly put people a lap down and things like that. So we feel if we get some concise rules that people follow, it'll be absolutely fun. It's fairly easy, like for myself, to actually be able to do it, especially on the ovals. Because obviously what I do is I sit in the pit lane and I wait to be called out. So that's rather easy to do. So I think that's a lot better overall for us to manage than having the in-game safety car that can be a bit awkward and temperamental. So that's why we went with the manual option, and is mainly going to be for the ovals, because obviously any crash that happens on an oval is a dangerous situation. Cars flying all over the place. Even though we do have the escape feature, we will be turning down the damage multiplier a little bit for the oval races as well, to try and make a tiny bit more forgiving. So we do want to have a situation where most people can get to the end, and especially if you pit under a caution period, you won't lose as much time. So the damage repair is actually only a few seconds longer than a full fuel tank anyway. So the whole process of this was trying to keep cars in the race, try and keep everyone safe. And obviously in a road course situation, it's a lot harder to manage that. But we will use the safety car if we have to, but the little incidents we won't do. Whereas on an oval course, pretty much every incident we're going to have to do, unless someone literally just does a 360 and continues.
Yeah, that's actually good reasoning why to bring in a safety car, especially for the oval race. We had one Indy 500 fun event back then 2 years, and I remember that after like 30 laps, more than half of the grid was DNF due to, as you say, long repairs, incidents, issues. So we hope for better and clean racing. And actually, I think the first pre-season test race we had in the oval was pretty damn nice. Like a lot of cars made it into the finish, and it was a good performance by everyone on the road there. Right, next up, we look into the IndyCar Pros race format. I think we are prioritizing the pro race format from this point onwards a little more than the AM. Not that the AM is not important, that's not the point, but it is just easier to focus on one series. In specific points where things needs to be set in order for, because we have a significant difference between pro and AM, hashtag tire rules, we're gonna say that obviously, but for now we're looking pretty much forward to the pro race series first of all. So as usual, we do have a free practice beforehand. Then we have a qualifying on the road course. This is going to be 9 laps in total, so 3 runs, as we've seen it this year in the Formula SimRacing main series as well. Got out lap, timed lap, in lap. 3 of those gonna qualify your 9 laps. And then we're gonna have a sprint race, which is effectively about 15 minutes, and afterwards a feature race with 50 minutes, and both races being different points. That is a different picture coming up later as well. So that is going to be the race format. So Cameron, about the sprint race and the feature race, do they sort of lean on each other in any way?
Yeah, so this was also the next point was after the calendar, we wanted to make the races interesting. And if some of you have watched the races from the official R-Factor 2 races in like GC Pro, that's sort of where the basis of this came. However, that, you know, in our opinion, had a few flaws that we wanted to tweak a little bit to the schedule. But the general idea we kind of liked, where you have the sprint race first rather than last. So that means that you can qualify really well, but then obviously you're going to be put back a little bit. However, we give points for that. So you don't really want to sandbag, because then even though you might start higher up, you then don't get as many points. And the points are very crucial, as you'll see in a few minutes' time. So yeah, it will be a lap distance race, because the lap distance we've tweaked a little bit depending on the track to make sure that the fuel strategy is sort of what we want it to be. We don't it to be overly easy or difficult. So that's why it's around 15 minutes and around 50 minutes. But sprint race will be nice and easy. So you'll just go out, pretty much one set of tires. You can just smash them out for however many laps it is. Whereas the feature race, you will have to make pit stops, because there are some quite interesting tire rules. And obviously with the fuel tank as well, if you do want to one stop, A, you're going to have to do something quite crazy on the tires because of the tire rules, and B, your fuel is going to be quite difficult, because if you just drive around, you won't be able to make a one stop work.
That is very true indeed. We're going to have a little look about that fact later on as well. But since we're still talking about the race format, we have just seen the format about the road racing. But FSR IndyCar also offers oval racing. And that's going to be quite different, because we're going to have a qualifying in groups of 5. It will still be a private session, but we're going to go out in groups of 5 so that the broadcast can capture the laps and also create a moment of suspense, as we've seen in the pre-season race. The grouping will happen according to the championship standings in reversed order, so the leader goes in the last group and effectively finds the best track conditions for himself, as all the other guys in his group as well. Beyond that, we're going to have the classic Indy 500 qualifying system. Means we have 6 laps in total, as it will be a 4-lap hot stint qualifying. So you do an out lap, 4 consecutive timed laps, and an in lap. And then it's the average of the completed lap times that will be used for determining your starting position on the grid. It's not going to necessarily be in the fastest lap. So you have to make sure as a driver to be consecutively super quick over 4 laps time. So as I said, equivalent to the Indy 500 procedure. And we have tested this qualifying format in the pre-season test race on the Appleville Speedway. And how did you think it works, Cameron, as a way to define the grid for the oval racing? I think personally, from a driver's perspective, it created sort of a necessary and unnecessary sense of high tension and a lot of suspension in the actual ongoing procedure.
Yeah, that was kind of the idea, to be honest, because, well, first of all, it has to be private qualifying because we don't have the time to send people out one by one like they do in real life, because that just takes, 1 or 2 hours, and we just really don't have the time for that. So that's why we did it in groups of 5, but still private. But despite it being private, we don't want all the cars going out, because if everyone goes out at the same time, everyone would literally cross the finish line at the same time, which makes it really difficult to follow. So we've done it in groups of 5, and it will be a reverse championship order, as you say. So I guess the leaders will get a tiny bit more real road, but in this situation is really not that bad because not many laps are going out between each of them. And in the preseason race, there wasn't a direct correlation anyway between that, because ovals are actually quite difficult. Despite what they look like, they're actually quite difficult to get perfect time. As you say, with the 4 hot lap stints, that was pretty much the Indy qualifying procedure, but it would be too difficult to change that for Apple Valley. So we're literally just doing the same qualifying format both times. And I think the consecutive laps and the average of that makes it really interesting because you can't mess up a lap. If you go too low on the apron and you wobble a little bit, you're going to lose, a tenth of a second down the straight, and that might be it. So it's very important to complete all the laps. And as you say, it creates tension for the driver, which is what we wanted. We don't want it just to be easy, go flat out 4 times. We wanted to make it a little bit difficult. So yeah, I think we've got a really good procedure here, and Thomas Lenz has made a nice program for us to be able to calculate all the averages and put it in order. So actually on the broadcast overlay, it will actually show the averages rather than the fastest time. So the viewers will be able to see it as they go along, which is going to be ironic because the drivers themselves won't be able to know that, because in game it only shows the fastest time, whereas on the overlay you will be able to see the averages. So the drivers will not know their finishing position straight away, which is also quite an interesting fact for the drivers.
I agree. I remember myself sitting there with a calculator on the desk. I'm like, oh no, Liam the Wall has just missed me by 0.004 of a second in his average. So, yeah, I remember that. But for a viewer's perspective, this is obviously great that the overlay will be adapted to that, to that average lap time. So, we have spoken about the tire rules as being one of the limiting factors or one of the governing factors when it comes towards strategy. So I think we should look at them right there, and you may want to start explaining a little bit, because over the event, that means for pro, sprint and feature race, the prime tire has to be used twice. Now, this sounds very easy in hindsight, but what does it effectively mean? Because one needs to be quite clear about what this rule specifically means.
Yeah, so it does sound a little bit well, in some ways sounds easy, in some ways sounds confusing straight away. But a side note of that, it is only your starting tyre in the sprint race, because obviously the sprint race is designed to only be one set of tyres. So if you do crash and make a pit stop, then your second tyre doesn't count. It's only your starting option. But what this means is if you start the sprint race on the alternate tyres, so the faster tyres, that means you then have to use 2 sets of the primes in the feature race. But doing a one stop in the feature race may not necessarily be the best strategy. And also if you do a one stop with prime, you're going to be really slow. So then you might have to do then 2 stop with an alternate and then 2 primes. And then it's obviously how that works. But then if you want to be really bold and use the primes in the sprint race, so obviously you're going to potentially hinder yourself there, but then you only have to use 1 set of primes. And because the alternates can go so long, you say it's a 40 lap race here in Indianapolis, you might be able to do, say, I don't know, 18 laps twice on the set of alternates, and then just do a really good splash and dash at the end on the primes, which means your overall race pace is going to be so much quicker. So it really is quite an interesting strategy with how that one is going to work, because that's the only tyre rule. So you can start on whatever tyres you want. You can make whatever pit stops you want. You can use whatever fuel. The only rule is that you have to use the primes twice between the sprint race and the feature race. So that's going to add quite a lot of diversity to the strategy. And I'm quite interested to see what people are going to do, actually, because we didn't have that in the pre-season race because we only did a feature race. And as you can see, when there's only the feature race for the AM guys, it's just the normal tyre rule that you have to use both compounds. So because we didn't test that in pre-season, I'm quite interested to see what people are going to do and what flexibility that brings.
Yeah, as we've outlined here, it enables both a limiting but also a flexibility option on the event strategy according to what you decide to do. And yeah, that will be interesting. This rule, however, doesn't apply for oval races because on the oval we just got one specific tyre, so there will be no tyre rules apart from flat out and just go.
Yeah, so obviously, yeah, for the ovals, you only have one tyre compound, so that there's no need for a rule.
Right, so speaking about the safety car real quick before coming towards the end of this presentation. The safety car will be driven manually and will be deployed on the race director's discretion, and in the moment the safety car will come out, pit road will be immediately closed unless you are the guy that crashed. So for that necessary repair, I think you are allowed to go into pit lane. And with the deployment of the safety car, the pit lane then will be soon reopened after the safety car has filed up the entire pack behind it. And the restart will happen in single files after the safety car goes back into the grid, into the pits, and that will resume the racing. So just quickly go through the safety car here. And this is the race format for the points. So the feature race for the that goes for both AM and Pro. AM only has the feature race, but the Pro series also has the sprint race. So you see, as Cameron said, you give out night points for the sprint race, 25, 22, 20, with quite a little bit of gap. So the distance between P1 and P5, P6 is still quite a bit one. So unless you do win the second race and earn the 35 points in the feature race, things are going to be very, very tight, I guess. And for the Indy 300, we're going to have double points as calculated on the feature race, if I see that correctly. So what was the idea behind the point system, and what do you expect from it?
Yeah, so I said the whole sort of basis of the series initially was sort of going with the GT Pro format, which had this single points system, which makes it quite interesting because even because it basically keeps the drivers much closer together. However, we then spread it out a little bit for the sprint race, so you actually see there's 2 points gap rather than one in the feature race. So what this means is that the points drop off is much greater, and therefore your finishing position is much more important in the sprint race. Along with that being only the top 17 drivers get points. So that was sort of introduced to try and make it more viable, or what's the word, more incentive to do well in the sprint race. Then obviously the feature race keeps it pretty close. So that means even if you have a little bit of a bad race, you're not going to be too far behind, and also gives, well, basically every driver who finishes is going to get points. And what that does, is hopefully keeps the championship quite close together, and then makes the sprint race a lot more important overall. And then obviously when you get to the final race of the season, and in real life as well, I believe they have double points for Indy. So we decided to do that as well. Because of the double points, it's then 2 points per gap, but the gaps are much bigger. So if you see pretty much the top 10 is 30 points between 70 and 40. So that again, that makes the Indy quite important to get the finish there. So hopefully, it's going to keep a really close field together in terms of the points, and then have quite a bit of variability in the results with the strategy. And then you get to the final race in Indy, and you probably still don't know who's going to win the championship. So that was kind of the whole reason, was to keep it nice and close, force a bit of strategy, and then still make quite a big finale out of the Indy 300.
That sounds very nice indeed, and takes us actually to the end of this presentation. So you guys now have the chance to fire some final questions at us towards the series, towards the events themselves. And Filippo Caneo had the first questions. He said about the oval. You've said that people can try to qualify without signing up to the entire championship. How the pre-qualify will work. You have any ideas to that yet?
So, as I said, the specific details we don't know, but the sign up has already been worked out. So, as mentioned if you look on the forums, in season information at the bottom of that document, it does say. So, for the drivers, every driver in Pro-Am, there's a €10 season pass, basically. So every driver that you see racing will have paid that season pass. But for the final race, it's only €5. And anyone who wants to sign up, admittedly, they do have to get their Speedway license, which is something I'll talk about in a couple of seconds after this. You do have to get a Speedway license, so you will have to do that pre-season race the week before. However, it'll be €5 to sign up, and then the specific details of the qualifying and the race I don't know, but it will be basically a qualifying and a race, and then the top however many drivers we need to fill the grid will then move up into the pro race. So yeah, that's pretty much what it's going to be. So you will have to sign up, you will have to get your Speedway license first, so therefore you will have to participate in one of the oval test races. But then if you've got that, you can just sign up, show up, and yeah, check it all out on the forums.
Yeah, I've just posted that forum link into the chat, so check out forum.formula-simracing.net or check out the website www.formula-simracing.net. You wanted to add something there, Cameron? I just broke into your word.
Yeah, I'll just say, so about the Speedway license. So we introduced this because we want to have the best quality possible, because let's be honest, oval racing is difficult. Even the top guys crash, in real life. On any oval sim racing stream I've seen, even when the race did the All-Stars thing a few months ago, even the oval races there, it was pretty carnage. So we really want to try and get the best racing possible there. So everyone with a WC license already, through our licensing system, will have an oval license, and then some select other people. I think there are about 10 or 15 selected people we added to that list. But then everyone else needs to successfully pass an oval test. Now, what does that mean? It basically means you show up to the oval test and you show us that you can drive an oval. That, like, as simple as that. All you need to do is you show us that you can go side by side. You show us that you can slipstream, that you can judge when to pull out of a car. Your general behavior around the event is good, then you will get your oval license. So if you've done SRCA to get into VEC, Virtual Endurance Championship, then it's a similar thing with that you basically need to follow the rules, show that you can drive, and that you're a calm a calm person when you come to these races, and then you'll get the license.
Very nice indeed. So we had another question by Mike Pittman, IMB Raceware. Does Cameron have any predictions on who he thinks will win tomorrow?
Yeah, well, on that point, if you are watching this and you don't already, go and buy some IMB Raceware. Go check them out. They make customized clothing, and they are a sponsor of FSR, and we're really proud to have them aboard. Mike's a good guy, and also Ian Berryman as well. Two good guys, and they'll be providing a bundle for the winner as well, which is really nice to have, as we had for the World Championship as well. So really good to have those guys on board. But yeah, who do I think is going to win? Well, Yanni Simoncic won both pre-season test races, both the oval and the road, and in both occasions he didn't look like he was going to win. But of course, he's Yanni; he does it. So
Yeah, I think
he's
the races.
probably the favourite, I would say. But then he's double FSR World Champion now. He won the pre-season races. He's generally, obviously, one of the best out there. He's probably one of the top 10 guys on R-Factor 2 at the moment. But then, obviously, you can't count out any of the other drivers. I mean, we've got Varga come in with Toman and Chinchik. So that's also a good team. We've got Williams, Stefanko, and Peter Burlak. We've got Evo with Siebel and Jordan. And I did quite a bit of testing with Dennis Jordan, actually. He was sort of one of the first guys to know about this series. And I sort of, worked around some of the rules of him and how it would work out. So he's probably going to be a good one as well. So who knows? And also yourself, Mitchie, you were winning the oval race. And if it wasn't for one of those safety cars, you probably would have won as well. So, yeah.
Maybe,
but I do think overall we're not going to know who's going to win, because the strategy is variable. On the ovals, you've got the safety car. Like, you can't predict it. But I'd say, if I had to put my money somewhere, Yanni Simoncic.
Well, that's a bold move, at least, because as you say, the test races also provide a various amount of action, various amount of events that happen and take influence on the actual racing. So I think we have two more questions. One of that being, most people probably be interested, prices. Are there going to be any prices governed by FSR, and what they're going to be?
Yes, so I will. I'll just load that up now to get the specifics. But yes, there will be prizes. So obviously FSR in general in 2020 has been sponsored by SimLab, IMB Racewear, and also 3D Wrap. So thank you to those guys for getting involved. They offered prizes for the main season, the World Championship Pro and Academy. And obviously this is a series on top of that. So we've worked some stuff out with them as well. So SimLab will be giving a €150 voucher to the Drivers' Champion. And the Drivers' Champion also will get the IMB Racewear bundle, as well as a free entry to the 2021 FSR season next year as well. So yeah, thank you to SimLab and IMB for getting involved on that one as well. So obviously do go check those guys out if you want any of your sim racing needs. Obviously SimLab make rigs and cockpits and that sort of thing to get everything set up nicely. IMB do customized racewear and sort of bundles to do with that, so you can get yourself some nice clothing. And then also 3D Wrap do some cool 3D printed sort of add-ons and wheels and rims and things like that. So if you want any of that, then do go check them out. But obviously we have some cash prizes as well. So the cash prizes are going to go to the teams championship. So the constructors battle is quite important here as well, because only the drivers champion will get the prizes, but the top 3 teams will get prizes. We got €125 cash prize to the champion, then €100 to second place, and 75 for third place, which is pretty much your entry fee next year to the 2021 championship as well. So good prizes up for offer with those guys. And then the Indy AM champion will also get free entry to 2021. So yeah, there is a bit of prizes for those teams, and yeah, hopefully we get maybe one of the new teams getting involved as well, because as I said, that prize is entry to 2021. So if you want to get yourself a nice little free entry, it'd be good to earn that here.
Very true indeed. So another question by Iceberg. What do you guys think? Who will be the surprise of the season? That does mean I need to get a guess out as well, do I?
It might be twice. Iceberg is Jukka-Pekka Laulu, who you see there with a Royal Blue. And to be honest, I think that Royal Blue car, or that team, I should say, might be a bit of the underdogs. Kalaksai, he was the Academy champion this year. Royal Blue were the Academy Teams champion this year as well. Lalu obviously raced in pro, but I think potentially they could be ones to look out for, because they've got no pressure on them. They've got all the big boys here. They've got all the bigger teams. They're there. Royal Blue have committed quite a lot to FSR in the last couple of years, so really good that they applied and were granted entry to the Indy Pro field. So yeah, hopefully they can do pretty well. But yes, surprise of the season could also be Jan Wozniacki, actually. Jan Wozniacki for Brem GP. He was very quick in the pre-season races, and he was trying to look for a seat like mad. He did the pre-season race to be like, hey, give me a seat, and then he managed to get one for Brem. So very good that he got in there. So I'd say between Royal Blue and Brem, I would say one of the drivers in those two teams is going to give us a little surprise.
That's a very interesting view on that. I actually have two guys on the list that I could imagine doing extremely well. The one is Alan Turchik, passionate sim racer, has done a sabbatical for a year and a half. Now comes back into sim racing. Obviously, with Jean Alesi, got quite some good teaming behind that. And the other guy is from Varga Sim Racing, Marcel Cinchik. He has been known for being an extreme racer in the Virtual Endurance Championship, doing bold moves, but being super quick, super fast, clearing traffic fast. But necessarily, I don't think he has been known as the master of open wheelers in the same way in the FSR context. So it will be quite nice to see what he can do, and I expect a lot from him as well. Right, final question of the stream, and if you guys do have more questions, feel free to put them down in the comment area after the video has been processed by YouTube, and we're gonna answer them. So Cameron or me are gonna put our answer below them. Final question is: you now enter a cooperation together with the race. You mentioned that the pro race is going to be broadcasted on the race channel, which features around 250,000 subscribers. What is that, like a strategic join of forces for the future? Because the race has been pretty active in the sim racing area, and I think it is a very nice push and an awesome pull from you guys and FSR to team up with them and basically get the IndyCar series out in cooperation. Is that something we can look forward to develop in 2021?
Yeah, well, first of all, massive thank you to the guys over there for getting involved. I guess the easiest way of saying it is obviously FSR, we would like more exposure, so getting a bigger channel and organizations such as themselves on board is pretty exciting for us. You see I'm smiling. I'm really happy with the way that's gone, and obviously for them, they obviously want some good quality content, so it's good that they've trusted us to run the series, because that was sort of quite a big thing, is that we wanted to still run the series as well, not just organize it, but actually run it as well, because obviously that's kind of the fun part for us as well, is setting up the servers, doing the race directing, and doing the broadcast and all this sort of stuff. So it's it just sort of worked out really well. They've been doing the articles already. Nathan over there has been watching the streams and doing the articles for us, and we didn't necessarily directly ask them to do that. That's just what they covered, because obviously they saw us as a good outlet for content, which is really good. So the fact that we're furthering that now, I'm actually having active talks with them is very positive. I'm really looking forward to it, and what can happen in the future as well. So I think it's going to be a really good opportunity for us. So as long as we nail this championship, which to be honest I think we've set up well enough to be able to do, then I think this could really lead to a good partnership with both of us, because the race is huge potential for exposure, and if we can use that, we can give them some good content, and I really think it's going to go pretty well.
I agree with that, and I'm personally very much looking forward to the future and see what this potential could mean in the end for Formula Sim Racing and for sim racing in general. That brings us to the end of this presentation. I hope you guys are now ready for the Formula Sim Racing Indy Pro AM Championship coming up, starting tomorrow with race 1 on the Indianapolis Grand Prix circuit. Thank you very much indeed, Cameron Rodger, for joining us and taking the time to answer all the questions and talk us through the key facts of the rulebook here. I think everyone is about to know what is going on tomorrow and in the next couple of weeks and months when we will be live with the series. And yeah, we're pretty much looking forward to it. So once again, Cameron, thank you very much for your time.
And no worries. Thanks for coming on, and we will see you guys tomorrow for the first race of the season. 16:40 GMT for AM and 18:40 GMT for Pro. So we'll see you then.
So that takes it to the end, guys. Thank you so much for watching us, and thank you for all your questions. Hope you have enjoyed this little different episode of Sim Racing Talking. Once again, a big massive thank you to Cameron, and we obviously will be live tomorrow with the first race. Guys, see you there. Have a nice weekend.